Battles are unfolding across Ukraine as Russian troops continue a wide-ranging attack at this hour.
February 23rd, it was just usual day, and Rita, she met her friends, so they spent a lot of time together, had fun, and they were talking about war because at that time everyone was talking in Ukraine, and they said, no, war will never start. At 4 a.m. on TV, Putin announced that he begins his special military operation, and in 15 minutes, Mariupol was bombed.
It's been labeled the center of hell in Ukraine.
Rita and Denis Shkapa and their daughter Elisa were a young family living in the seaside city of Mariupol, Ukraine. They saved up enough money to build a brand new home where they'd hoped to start their life. But just weeks later, Russia invaded Ukraine, their brand new home destroyed. The family soon evacuated to Poland before seeking sponsorship to come to the United States.
When they came on August 6th to airport, 8 people with Ukrainian flags met them, and they were very excited, and it was very emotional.
In April of last year, President Joe Biden launched the Uniting for Ukraine program, allowing a pathway for Ukrainian citizens to seek refuge in the United States via the support of an American sponsor. Currently, under that program, Ukrainians can stay in America for up to 2 years.
It's through that program the Shkapa family, as well as Mila Mostova and her kids, were able to retreat to the U.S.
Are you buying this place? No.
Specifically to Duluth. Mostova's family lived 50 miles south of Kyiv. She remembers the morning of the invasion vividly, the sound of metal scratching and her house shaking.
Metal screeching sounds, and my bed was shaking, my house was shaking, and but somehow my first thought was it must be war, because it can't be an earthquake. We don't have earthquakes in Ukraine. These sounds and the feelings of earthquake, they weren't like anything I've ever experienced before. That's why I'm like, what's the craziest thing that can happen? It must be war.
Yes.
Mostova lived in Duluth as a teenager as a foreign exchange student. More than 15 years later, she stayed in contact with her host family, who she says didn't hesitate to sponsor her and her children when Mostova decided they needed to leave Ukraine last year.
I talk to Sue, to my friend in America, all the time, and she was the first person who offered. She said, hey, take your kids and come over. You'll be safe here. You'll be all right. You won't have missiles flying over your head. So, and then this program launched, which is called United for Ukraine, and we decided to take this chance.
For their first few months in the U.S., Mila and her 2 kids, Veronica and Severin, lived with their sponsor. After Mila was approved to work, they were able to move into their own apartment. She says her kids are thriving, but the effects of war are always there, even while playing at the park.
And we heard the train, the train approaching, and it made these really loud sounds. And my kids ran up to me with eyes this big and like, Mommy, is this air raid siren? Do we need to hide? Do we need to run away to the basement somewhere? Do we need to go somewhere? Do we need to run? And it just broke my heart, and I realized how still, even not living in Ukraine during war for a long time, the war still has affected all of us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And my children will still remember that forever. And I don't want them to ever experience this fear again.
While Mostova and the Shkapas are finding a new home in Duluth, Paul Maccabee, a Ukrainian native, has lived in the United States for almost 2 decades. Now in Superior, Maccabee moved to the U.S. with his mom and stepdad after graduating high school. A few years ago, he became a citizen. He watched from halfway across the world as his hometown Mykolaiv and his family faced the invasion.
It's a stress, it's a fog in your mind. You can't really think very straight. You call and try to connect with them immediately. I could hear the explosions and I could hear my nieces crying, and that was very stressful.
Maccabee says the separation from his family and friends during the first few weeks of the invasion was especially difficult, so he needed to take some time off from work to cope.
I grew up in Ukraine and I went through 2 revolutions. I knew that Ukrainians will be responding. I knew that Ukrainians will be resisting and fighting.
Looking to the future, Maccabee, Mostova, and the Shkapas all wish for the war to end, but their dreams go beyond just peace for Ukraine. For Maccabee, continued support and awareness.
My biggest hope is that the global society and American population and Europeans, they understand what are the stakes in this war. It's not just about Ukrainian freedom. It is about the international law. It's about the principles of our international system. My biggest hope that the support to Ukraine doesn't fade away.
For the Shkapas, building a new life in a new home.
They lost everything and there is nowhere to come back because city is destroyed. So they hope to stay here because United States is a country with big opportunities.
For Mostova and her children, a life of laughter.
I want my kids, just like every mother, to have a good future, to have access to education, to all the kinds of activities, to have happy childhood, you know, not running around and not going to the basement every time they hear air raid sirens.
1 year of invasion, but a future
I hope for a brighter future of Ukraine.
full of hope. In Duluth, Larissa Millis, Northern News Now.